you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground at Gravitas? We don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods.
Hello there, I'm Njoka and this is WION World is One. This week we talk about the relevance of the monarchy after King Charles III was officially crowned at his coronation ceremony. Many former colonies were not as enthusiastic as Britain was. What has stoked this decades-old anger? We will talk more about that shortly. Welcome to World of Africa. The coronation of King Charles III was a historic event. But what does it mean for Africa? Some have expressed excitement, while others say it is a sad day that reminds them of Britain's colonial legacy. Critics say it is time for former colonies to move on and forge a new chapter, as just like a generation, the monarch keeps changing or evolving. Here's why this grand event drew apathy in Africa and some countries in the Commonwealth.
It was the biggest and most anticipated event in modern history. Millions across the world watched Charles and Camilla being crowned king and queen. There was the usual pageantry and fervour that is involved in the coronation of a monarch, but the enthusiasm in London was not the same in other continents, more specifically the former colonies in Africa and the Caribbean. In Kenya, for instance, not so many were keen on this grand event. People like Grahamat Luvizia, a motorcycle operator, had his priorities elsewhere.
So I've heard about this story of the king being coronated back there in England. But I won't be interested in watching the news or whatever that's happening over there, because we've been mistreated back then by those colonizers. Yeah, we were being mistreated, so there's no need of me watching the coronation of the king.
Charles is also head of state of 14 other countries, though the role is largely ceremonial. These realms, which include Australia, Canada, Jamaica, Papua New Guinea and New Zealand, represent a minority of the Commonwealth nations. Most of the 56 members are republics, even if some still sport the Union Jack on their flags. Some heads of state in various countries in Africa decided to boycott the event in order to send out a message to the royals. 2 days ahead of Charles's crowning, campaigners from 12 Commonwealth countries wrote to the monarch urging him to apologize for the legacies of British colonialism. Something alluded to by Professor Herman Manyora, a communications expert based in Nairobi.
One would expect Kenyans to be excited because of a long shared history. Sadly, it's that history that makes Kenyans disinterested, actually not happy with the British because of the torture during colonialism, because of the oppression, because of detentions, because of killings, because of the alienation of our land. And for that reason, Kenyans will be busy looking for what to put in the stomach, for food on the table, instead of being glued on television watching the coronation. Of course, there's television stations who will run it, but I don't think many Kenyans will be excited about the coronation.
In fact, days before the coronation, some South Africans called on Britain to return the world's largest diamond, known as the Star of Africa, which is set in the royal scepter that King Charles III held at his coronation. The diamond, which weighs 530 carats, was discovered in South Africa in 1905 and presented to the British monarchy by the colonial government in the country, which was then under British rule. Now, amid a global conversation about returning artwork and artifacts that were pillaged during colonial times, some South Africans are calling for the diamond to be brought back.
To King Charles, I think it would be right for him to ascend his throne, ensuring that he's showing a sign of hope to us Africans, those who were previously colonized well, not by him directly, but by his predecessors. And I think if he wants to be a recognized monarchy, a respected monarchy by the African people, it would be wise of him to return what was taken from us without our consent.
We want the crown to be brought back to South Africa where it belongs. At least it will restore the dignity of the African child. At least it will restore the self-respect of the African child. So it's a touchy subject to me.
In Jamaica, the coronation of King Charles III was seen with apathy as best and at worst a painful reminder of oppression and colonialism's bloody past.
We still have the institutions of slavery and colonization with us today in 2023, and we need to do much more. And so removing the king symbolically ends that phase in our journey, and the work ahead is to deepen the idea of self-determination in the hands of the Jamaican people, shaping a future in a very active way.
Barbados was the most recent Commonwealth country to remove the British monarch as its head of state, replacing Charles's mother, Queen Elizabeth II, with an elected president in 2021. The decision spurred similar Republican movements in neighboring Jamaica, the Bahamas and Belize. Experts say that despite its flaws, historical baggage and fraying edges, the Commonwealth still holds appeal, especially for poorer nations. Gabon and Togo, which are former French colonies with no colonial links to Britain, became the association's newest members last year. Most observers believe countries like Jamaica that want an elected head of state are likely to retain their memberships. King Charles was crowned in a ceremony steeped in ancient ritual and brimming with bling at a time when the monarchy is also striving to remain relevant in a fractured modern Britain. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
South Africa's energy crisis doesn't seem to be getting better, and the country's agriculture sector is sounding an alarm for the government to solve the electricity problem quickly. They warn that if the power crisis persists, then the country may soon head into a food crisis as well. Our reporter Kalden Ongmu has sent us this report.
In South Africa, it is safe to say that all sectors of economy are suffering greatly with the ongoing power crisis. But one industry in particular is warning the government to come to the table immediately to solve this crisis, or else the country might see a threat of food security.
AgriSA has been in engagement with government for some time now on the issue of load shedding and the impact it has on food security in South Africa. Farmers and the rest of the agriculture value chain is really struggling at this point in time. Our dairy farmers can't keep their milk refrigerated. Our poultry farmers are struggling to slaughter. Our meat prices are nosediving because our big retailers do not have the capacity to stock all the meat due to the fact that they have to contend with load shedding.
These small-time farm owners say they're already feeling the effects of continuous rolling blackouts.
Things have changed and it has become difficult because as farmers or in the farms, we depend on borehole water. Yes, it was easier before the challenges of load shedding, but now with load shedding, it has become more difficult. Some of our crops, they need watering on a daily basis, but it is not easy because the load shedding we have to follow the schedule of load shedding. So it is not enough for our crops. Yes, we try and we come with plans. How can we survive this? We buy generators, but you'll agree with me that the diesel is killing on us. So it has become very challenging, and you wonder how will we survive.
Really, we have suffered a lot because of load shedding. You can see some of our crops are dying because sometimes when we are about to water it, there is no water, and the electricity is no more, and also the problem again, you can't pump. We have got boreholes. We are using boreholes, so the problem when there is no electricity, you can't pump the water.
Last month, data from Statistics South Africa showed that the country's inflation rose to 14% year-on-year in March, the highest in 14 years, with food prices contributing heavily. Agri South Africa says they want immediate solutions from the government.
Millions are being spent currently on the purchasing of diesel, the installation of solar panels, as well as the purchasing of diesel generators. But we must remember that alternative energy sources, it's not able to run your big irrigation systems and your big processing plants. And that's why we are really appealing to our government as well as Eskom to find urgent solutions for this problem, because the last thing that South Africa can afford is food shedding.
If the situation continues to run like it is, the country is definitely headed for trouble. The farmers will plant less crops, food processors and retailers will continue to struggle, and then upcoming drier season is expected to worsen the situation if government doesn't buckle up and solve the energy crisis. This is Kaldanongmu from Limpopo, South Africa. For WION, World is One.
Africa Memorial Day aims to commemorate and celebrate the lives and contributions of those who are true sons and daughters of Africa, and also showcase its rich cultural heritage. This year's theme, Roots of No Return, highlights both physical, historical places and Africa's resolve to avoid repeating the same mistakes of the past. Africa's leaders and people are determined to chart a new course that leads to prosperity, stability, and even unity. Our correspondent Louisa Olaniyi sent us this report.
The rising concern over the level at which the African continent is moving backwards due to the lasting impact of imperialism and new colonization has once again come to the fore. This call was made by Mr. Femi Falana, a senior advocate of Nigeria, while delivering his keynote address at a program organized by Correct Connect Africa Foundation in commemoration of Africa Memorial Day in Lagos recently. This year's Africa Memorial Day was themed on Roots of No Return, pointing to where slaves in Africa were exported to the West, which was expected to serve as a reminder of the African past and a hope for a better future.
We are talking about our ancestors, those who were taken from slavery, Abi. So let us look at the points that they were taken from. Let us look at the different points of no return, the doors of no return. And we are looking at Badagry, the Berefun Island. We are looking at Ouida in Benin Republic. We are looking at Gorée Island in Senegal. And we are looking at even Kinta Kunte and also Elmina Castle in Ghana. So these ports, we say let us study about them and know how our ancestors, our forefathers, how they were taken to the. So that's how we came up with the idea. So we are looking at, initially we said the relevance of remembrance. This time around we said, okay, let us look at those ports, those points in which our ancestors were taken away.
The day, which is also in commemoration and celebration of the lives and contributions of those who are true sons and daughters of Africa. While showcasing its rich cultural heritage, had spoken words, rendition and dance performances telling the African story. Custodians of culture say that people who turn their backs on their history are like a tree without roots, as the significance of history will inform and chart a path to the future.
The need to remember and celebrate the challenges and struggles of Africa and her heroes and heroines was once again stressed at the Africa Memorial Day. The countless lives lost in the struggle for freedom and justice across the African continent should not be forgotten in a hurry. The younger generations have been called to reflect on the struggles and triumphs of the African people and to reaffirm their commitment to creating a better future for all. From Terra Culture in Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olani, WION, World is One.
Senegalese researchers have begun harvesting experimental homegrown wheat, the latest step in a years-long effort to reduce reliance on imports. The second most consumed cereal after rice, wheat is an important staple in the bread-loving West African nation. Here now is a report.
With the whir of a mower under a clear blue sky, Senegalese researchers have begun harvesting a crop of experimental homegrown wheat. The latest step in a years-long effort to reduce reliance on imports. Since last week, researchers from the Senegalese Institute for Agricultural Research have been harvesting 4 varieties of wheat on a demonstration plot in Sangalkam, 35 kilometers from the capital, Dakar. The second most consumed cereal after rice, wheat is an important staple in the bread-loving West African nation. But Senegal, like many of its neighbors, depends entirely on foreign supplies. It imports 800,000 metric tons of the grain per year. Its tropical climate is not only naturally suited to wheat, but domestic trials have been underway for years. Supply chain problems, rising grain prices and inflation caused by the war in Ukraine have added urgency to the country's efforts to achieve self-sufficiency.
It succeeded very well. Although it is sown late, it is sown in conditions where it is very hot, as we know that wheat is a crop of temperate zones. But despite everything, we really are there. We have varieties of the wheat that adapt to this heat, which adapt to these agroclimatic conditions, let's say. So, the results really are promising. We are satisfied with these varieties.
The Sangalkam crop, one of several successful experiments by the Institute, was sown in early January and matured in 3 months during Senegal's cold season. Lack of adequate water for irrigation posed a significant challenge. Not everyone is convinced that wheat can be grown at scale in Senegal. Most bakers say they would prefer to see resources dedicated to producing local cereals such as millet, maize and sorghum.
Self-sufficiency, yes, but we will get there gradually. We are at the very beginning. So there is this objective to reduce Senegal's dependence on the outside for its consumption of wheat.
It's not only wheat that the Sahel country is looking at maximizing in efforts to be food sufficient. During a 2022 announcement by India, one of the world's major rice exporters, that said that it will restrict sales of the staple globally. Senegal is seeking to up its own rice production and wean itself off imports, setting a goal of self-sufficiency within 10 years.
We prefer organic rice production without fertilizer or urea. We only use compost. We prefer this locally produced rice because the price of imported rice is currently very high, and we would like to increase our production each year to secure our supply and to ignore imported rice. Our goal is to ensure that all of Senegal consumes only this local rice.
The remarkable turnaround in wheat production sector spells possibilities for closing the current import gaps as the country strives to transform the nation into a food basket. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Let's go to Zimbabwe now, where you pick a portrait of yourself, have the picture hand-carved on a gravestone of your own design, and pay for the monument before you die. That is how a former banker has turned this business into a huge success. Here now is his story.
This is Harare, the capital city of Zimbabwe. And here you pick a portrait of yourself, have the picture handcrafted on a gravestone of your own design, and then pay for the monument before you die. That is how a former banker, Tafadzwa Machokoto, found an unusual formula of making a hugely successful business. He joined thousands in search of a better life. A year later, after a not-so-rosy stint, he returned to live in Rugari, a rundown district of the capital of Harare, where the big business is making tombstones. Competition in the funeral sector is ferocious, and Machokoto, pardon the pun of course, quickly learned that he had to think outside the box.
This is not done by anyone. This is art, pure art, which is actually something you don't learn, but something that you're actually born with. So we also have to appreciate these guys who do it, because it's not an easy task to do.
I certainly decided form with help of myself, but the help of anyone, just do it all alone.
Engraved portraits of the dead are a common sight in graveyards in Europe and elsewhere, though they are usually etched by laser. For a similar idea to work in Zimbabwe, the pair had to pitch handcrafted labor and overcome entrenched traditions and taboos. Funeral styles in this southern African nation are often conservative, and it is typically the responsibility of the bereaved, not the deceased, to choose the monument. But Machokoto says that many people are swayed by the portrait and the idea of saving their loved ones as part of funeral costs ahead of time. Clients make a down payment of 50% and pay 10% of the balance every subsequent month.
It's different from you setting up a tombstone for someone else whom we have lost. But at Nyumbayanga side, we are saying this is your own tombstone that you're willing to pay for. So that we design it and we make it, then we just set it aside. So on average, we're saying we do probably between 80 to 100 sales per month.
One client is Jessica Magilazi, a 43-year-old Zimbabwean based in South Africa, where she's a domestic worker. She lost her mother when she was still an infant. Her family had no picture of the mother except for the mugshot she had used in her passport, and thereby to the tombstone.
When I look at the portrait, it's like I'm seeing my mother in real life and I'm talking to her. We did not have her picture, but one of our uncles said he had her passport. We decided to use it for the tombstone. When she died, we did not have any memory of our mother.
The business employs 12 full-time stone workers and several part-timers, and attracts clients from across southern Africa and as far as Britain. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And that's our time this week on Wild of Africa with me, Njoka. Thank you very much for your time and for watching. Find us on our social media platforms. Your feedback is highly appreciated. And until next week, it is goodbye from me.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that